beautiful, man.
Looks pretty good, right?
Looks more than pretty good. This is amazing. You did the time machine here. It looks like it just came off the factory. Hey everyone, Justin Pate from the Rap Institute, joined by Anthony from the Rag Company. Anthony, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And in this video, we're going to talk about how to restore headlights.
Yes.
Now, Anthony, you know, it's really popular today, and it's more and more as a great upsell or even standalone, is a lot of rappers are either putting, let's say, Lux light wrap to customize the front light, kind of smoke them out, or put PPF, which protects it.
Yep.
You could also do both. PPF now is, you could have a little tint to it, whatever. Now, it's interesting, rappers know how to rap.
Yep.
Detailers know how to detail. Mm-hmm. But there's not a lot of mixing between the two.
Not a ton, no.
So if you get a car like this, for example, where the lights are all beat up, not so great,
yeah.
If I put Lux over it or PPF, it's still not gonna look great.
No, not
So
at
I
all.
need to bring these back to life.
Yes.
Before we get into it and you show all your tips and tricks, what tools do you need?
So tools I'm going to use, and this is what I typically use for oxidized headlights. There's a difference between oxidation and then also complete clear coat failure. In this case right here, they're just oxidized, meaning that the clear coat, the exterior clear coat on here has started to turn yellow, and that's because of UV damage on the exterior shell or on the exterior coating on the clear coat that eventually just starts yellowing and doesn't look good. It also happens from going through a car wash and getting car wash chemicals and things like that. Whether they're really high pH or low pH can eventually start deteriorating that coating as well. Now this is a oxidation situation. Clear coat failure is when literally it looks like there's tears in the exterior coating. And if there's tears in the exterior coating, it's much more of a job than what we're doing today, meaning that you will have to completely resand and refinish those headlights down to bare plastic and then reshoot them with clear or polish them out and then put paint protection film over them. So in this case, it's oxidation, it's not bad, meaning that we can work with the clear coat that's left on here, being able to polish this out and restore it.
So it's a visual and a feel thing.
Correct, it's a visual and a feel thing. And so today, what we're gonna be doing is we're going to be sanding, and I know that sounds scary to a lot of people, but we're going to be using sandpaper. It's called Trizac. It's 3000 grade is what it is.
Oh, wow.
It's probably one of the safest kind of sandpapers to get into, especially with something like this. And so we're going to be wet sanding off the old oxidation, or at least trying to remove as much as that we can, and then going through and then compounding everything out with a microfiber pad, and then we're going to be switching to a foam pad, and we're going to be sticking with the same compound because this compound has a pad dependent cut, meaning that if I put it on a more abrasive pad, it's going to give me a lot of cut. If I put it on a light polishing pad, it's going to give me a nice polish. So it's going to have the best of both worlds there. And so we're going to be going through sanding everything down, getting everything to a nice flat surface is what we're looking for. Flat and smooth. It's gonna look worse before it gets better. But once you see it look bad, and once we start taking the compound and the polisher to it, it's gonna look amazing. All right, so first step is going to be taping off the surrounds of the headlight. Since we're sanding, we don't want to hit the paint with a sandpaper, otherwise we're gonna be polishing that as well. So grab yourself some normal painter's tape, and you're gonna start lining the outside of the headlight, taping it off so that way we don't hit it with the sandpaper. And it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to do the job. So as long as it's protecting the paint, we're gonna be okay. All right, so after we've taped everything off here, this is where we're gonna start laying down some of our lubricant. So in this case, I'm gonna be using Optimum No Rinse, which is a rinseless wash at 256:1, mixed with water. So it's mostly water, a little bit of polymer in there. We're gonna spray the surface of the headlight down, and then we're gonna take our Trizac sanding paper. And so this is a sanding disc, but it's nice because it's very foamy and very squishy, and it reduces pressure points when I'm sanding. That way I'm not putting any type of deep gouges in here. And so what I do is I fold it in half, and then I fold it in fourths, and then from there, start in a section and start using diagonal strokes and working my way up and down. Now this is going to start taking off the oxidation, so you're gonna start seeing a lot of this milky substance. And I have some kind of yellow substance coming off down here and kind of flowing down, and that is the old oxidized clear coat. And so for this, because we're not doing a complete resand and the clear coat hasn't failed, we're not sanding down to plastic. Now, if this was horrible and in really bad shape, we would be going all the way down to plastic to remove all of the clear coat, exposing just the polycarbonate plastic. And so going through, making diagonal strokes, and now it's going to look like you're not really doing anything, but as long as you're seeing that milky liquid coming off, you're doing something. Spray more water, more O&R on there, and keep going back and forth. Now, when you're doing this, at first, this job might take you, could take you up to an hour. But once you get good at it, you could probably start knocking these out anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, all said and done. And this right here, especially if you're gonna go into some type of paint protection film, The amount of clarity that you get out of the headlight in this step right here is going to be the amount of clarity you're going to get out of that paint protection film as well. And so you don't want to have any type of major defects or oxidation underneath that PPF because it will show in certain light. The PPF will create a new surface, which is nice, and it will feel smooth, but it may still look odd if you don't have all of the oxidation off. Now in terms of how much pressure I'm applying, I'm using just fingertip pressure. I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on here for my arm. I'm mainly just focusing on having even pressure points amongst my fingers and then guiding that sandpaper across. Listening and feeling for any type of major lumps or bumps and making sure I'm knocking everything down. And if I need to, I can flip my paper to a different side if I'm losing the amount of cut I need. Re-soak that down some more and then keep it going. Another thing to note is that certain headlights are a little bit more difficult than others, and they'll have protrusions here, similar to how this corner piece has right here. It's like this bulge. Just work around it the best you can. Sometimes it can be a pain, but that's why I'm using this particular paper, because it's really easy to manipulate around these corners and still give me an even cut all the way through. All right, so after we've got everything sanded down, we're gonna take more of our spray, take a microfiber towel, start cleaning up all the excess liquid here. And then from here, like I said before, it's gonna start to look worse before it looks better. Knocking all that down. Then what I typically like to do is blow on the headlight just to dry it out. And I'm also looking for any spots that I may have missed. So I can see that this corner up here, I didn't get that all the way. Down here, I can hit this just a little bit more, and then up top here. So I'm gonna grab my sandpaper one more time, not re-wetting the surface, just using the leftover liquid in the sandpaper, squeeze that out, get this bottom corner here, spot sand that. Once that's good, come down to here and re-wipe the area. At this point, we are ready to jump in with the machine and start compounding with a microfiber pad and a compound. All right, so you wanna give your compound a really good shake, mixing everything up. Feel your headlight one last time. It should be nice and smooth to the touch, and it should have a very uniform look in terms of the flatness and the haziness. Grabbing our compound, I'm using a microfiber pad because a microfiber pad has really good cut to it. It doesn't have as long a working time as wool, and it builds up a little bit more heat than wool, but I do like it for the amount of cut and then the overall finish. And so spreading my compound into my pad like this, making sure I have decent even coverage. Once I've worked it into the fibers, I'll do a little bit more here. And then this is a dual action machine, meaning that it oscillates and rotates. And so I will go ahead and flick this thing on and adjust my speed as needed for what I need to do. And I'm gonna be using a crosshatch method, going left to right, up and down, left to right, up and down, left to right, up and down. And if I have too much compound built up into my pad, I'll use a pad tool to cleanse out all that compound. All right, so we just finished up with the compounding, and so far, I think this is gonna look pretty dang good. So I'm gonna take that previous solution I had with the O&R at 256:1 just to help me wipe off some of that compound in case it built up too much heat. A couple sprays on here, a couple sprays into my towel, and then begin removing the compound. Now at this point, this headlight should be looking pretty dang good. However, we're gonna make it look a little bit better because we're gonna go through with the foam pad and that same compound to try to extract a little bit more gloss out of it just to make it look as new as we possibly can. But at this point, I would say most people would be pretty happy with it, but we're not going for just happy. We're gonna go for perfection on this and make sure it looks pretty dang good. So I'll take off my microfiber pad here, which you can see is all yellowed because of all the oxidation I removed. I'll clean this thoroughly with water and a little bit of all-purpose cleaner, but I will switch to my foam pad here. And then, taking that same compound, put some of that on the pad, work that in, and start to machine up and start polishing it out. All right, now at that point, we can start removing our tape. All right, and that looks pretty good. Let's have Justin come take a look.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
Looks pretty good, right?
Looks more than pretty good. This is amazing. I mean, you know, when we wrap cars, sometimes you get a wrinkle, you overstretch the film, you can heat it, take it back to its original shape and tension. I call that kind of doing the time machine.
Yeah.
You did the time machine here. It looks like it just came off the factory.
Heck yeah, man. That's what we're going for, right? And so the PPF will actually lock that in, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I've had situations where I've had to remove the clear coat completely down to the bare plastic.
Okay, and that's okay.
And that's okay, as long as you put paint protection film over it.
Got it.
If you do that, because the paint protection film is going to have UV inhibitors in there, and it's also going to have the ability to keep the headlight from oxidizing again. So that is a good enough protection for sure.
Nice.
It's just in this case, we still have clear coat, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And now we just protect that clear coat by putting over PPF.
Okay, but let's say the customer doesn't want to pay for the PPF on top or they can't afford it.
Okay.
Is this fine by itself?
So it's fine by itself for right now, right? Because there still is clear coat. There is still going to have some UV inhibitors left over. However, it has to be protected. So I'd highly recommend putting on some type of spray sealant, ceramic coating, or even a wax at the bare minimum.
Okay.
And that way, it's going to stay looking good for longer. But of course, being exposed to heat in the sun and car wash chemicals and things like that, it could return to being oxidized again in maybe a year to 2 years' time.
Okay, so wax this level, ceramic coating this level, PPF this level.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then so basically this took about 20 minutes from start to finish. You can bring the time down. You talked about that.
Yep.
But for me, I love this now because again, you don't have to take the car out of your shop. You as a wrapper now know how to do this, and again, basic, straightforward tools. And it's just about that precision, which is great. And based on this now, do you have to clean it with alcohol, or can you wrap right over the top of this?
So I would clean it with alcohol really quick. It's not going to harm anything because again, we're using a compound that doesn't have any type of fillers in it.
Nice.
If it had fillers in it or a ton of silicone and oils, it could be masking some things. This doesn't have any of those. There's no fillers. So what you see is what you get regardless of alcohol or whatever the heck you wipe it down with.
Nice. So getting the right compound is absolutely key for this.
100%.
Especially if you're wrapping.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Anthony, Ken, thank you so much for giving all these tips and tricks, and now you know how to repair these lights and get them wrappable, which is cool.
Heck yeah.
Ciao.